Hello everyone. I can see there were a few people who have joined and who are also joining with us. So probably 2 to 3 weeks ago, Harshit was asking me whether I can give some sort of experience sharing session with the Topcoder community, that how we can actually do the competitions and win those competitions, especially in the data science part of it in Topcoder. So that's the experience sharing session today, which has been arranged kindly by JC and Harshit and team, that how to win the data science competitions in Topcoder. So one thing to mention here, that this is not a coding session or show and tell session or give you some sort of lecture on this kind of algorithm which would give you the winning score or winning mechanism in the Topcoder. Rather than it's some sort of, I would say, a framework or a process or a philosophy which one can follow, and I actually follow these sort of things to win in the data science competitions. So a brief introduction about myself, that who am I, what I do actually. So I am a full-time employee of Wipro Technologies. Currently I am deputed in United Kingdom, London. Unfortunately, which is now the worst part affected by COVID-19. So unfortunately, I am in London, and I usually take part in the data science coding challenges to keep myself on top of the latest technology trends and support of my dream. And on my full-time day job, I work as a digital technology solution architect. So as part of my responsibilities, I usually do the architecture design and I oversee the implementations. So I usually lead a team of data scientists and the technology solution development teams. So that's my job, what I actually do. So as I was sharing my experience, that this session is not a coding session or show and tell session. Rather than, I would like to tell you some stories of my winnings and how did I win, how I approached those problems, what did I do to win, and what is my philosophy I follow usually for winning those competitions. So I believe that there are stories everywhere. So let us understand what are the stories. So first, I was actually thinking it through, that whether should I first put my failures or the wins, because failures come fast, right? So in that case, I thought, okay, let us first put the wins, because that gives a positive note for us to start, rather than putting a failure and then everyone would be demotivated, right? So that's the reason I put these wins first. So these are my few key wins over the last 1 year, 1.5 years. So my first win, obviously first win is a special one, obviously, to everyone. So the first win was a closing bid predictor, and it was an implementation challenge which had happened in August 2018. So the problem statement was something like an investment banking firm. In Topcoder, we do not know the actual customer name, so it's just the domain was from investment banking, and the challenge was to actually understand who will win the bid for an merger and acquisition program. So we had to create an algorithm on top of that. I wasn't able to submit in the ideation phase, I remember, but I submitted in this particular implementation phase of the challenge. And what can I say? I was lucky that I won that one. That was my first contest. And the actual thing what I did when I was actually working on that implementation challenge, I was thinking it through, and I thought, okay, let me put myself into the position of that investment banking CEO. That what would I actually do if I were in that position? And that sort of thinking actually gave me some sense of ownership. And when I own the thing, then I give my everything to solve the problem, whatever I own. So that was the philosophy, and that was the process I was actually been into. And that's my first win. And then my biggest win, which was biggest in terms of the dollar value in the prize money, which was recently on the code challenge in December 2019. And that was the University of Chicago arranged problem statement, where we had to actually understand how the urban world actually works through a simulation algorithm. So on that competition, at that point of time, actually, the Nobel Prize was declared probably 1 month ago, and I was actually reading a book written by last year's economy Nobel laureate Abhijit V. Banerjee on the social economy. And I was actually, when reading it, I was actually intrigued by it, that how easily all the things has been put. So I started applying few of the concepts which was written in that book into the problem, into the solving of this problem approach. So while doing that, apparently the client, customer, and the co-pilots who were actually judging this whole contest, they appreciated the approach what I took to solve this problem, and eventually I won that one. So that's my biggest win, I would say. And I would also like to actually share an interesting story of another problem which I won in August 2019, which is related to a retail popularity and sentiment prediction. So I remember on the checkpoint, I wasn't able to submit before the checkpoint because I was working on a different challenge at that point of time. And after the checkpoint, somehow due to the complexity of the problem, the co-pilot actually extended the timeline. So then I started participating seriously on that problem statement. And on that very day, when I actually understood the whole problem statement and I decided that I will give it a go on that problem statement, I was watching a documentary in Netflix. And on that documentary, it was actually with the Cambridge Analytica, and how they had leveraged the power of social networking and all those things to actually control and manipulate the presidential election in US. So the the Netflix documentary was about that. So while watching that one, in back of my mind, this problem statement was there. So I was thinking, okay, can I do a similar sort of thing to actually gauge the popularity of the retail products? Because that was the problem we were solving, that how we can actually understand the popularity. And that came into my mind that, okay, let me put these kind of theories into the practical implementation, how we can actually do that. And yeah, so client actually liked it, Copilot liked it, and they judged me as a winner. So those are the stories, a few stories, and all of my wins have a story, but that would be a very big program, so we cannot actually share all the stories. But all of the wins have obviously have some memories, have some stories around it. So these are three stories for my three key wins in Topcoder. Okay, so then, as I shared, that I was actually thinking it through, that whether should I put my fault or my mistakes first, or failures first, or the wins. So as I discussed my wins, now it's time to actually understand what are the failures one can actually have, what are the problems one can actually face while participating in the Topcoder. So let's see how I learn from my failures, right? So first thing, if I fail, and whenever I fail frequently, So whenever I fail, I compare my approach that after the review phase, let's say I placed in fifth or sixth positions. So I actually compare my solution and learn from all of the other solutions, even if they are ranked lower than me. So it doesn't matter. So let's say there were 10 to 15 submissions and I placed rank 6, and there were only 3 prizes, 1 2 3. Obviously I look into the 1 2 3 position first, but I take a look till number 15, because every solution has something different into their approach, and I try to learn from all of those. So that's the one thing I do at first after the review phase, and try to learn from my failures and from others failures too. So that's one of the key thing. Then the second thing one can face, the actual problem in the data science competitions in Topcoder, is the problem of time, because obviously we all know that if we give enough time, then we would obviously improve the solution enough, but the time is not infinite. So time is a time, every competition is a time bound competition. So time management is a critical key skill in my opinion, and I am still trying to improve my time management skill, which I am not very much skillful at this point of time. And a few of my challenges, recent challenges, I was not being able to perform at my best due to these time management skill gap. I am trying to criticizing my own time management skill every day, and doing that, I hope that I would improve it in the long run. And then one another key thing is to acceptance of my failure. So when I say acceptance of my failure, that in my opinion, this is one of the key trait if we want to be in the path of our success. So initially I found it really hard. I was struggling to accept my failure, that okay, I failed it very badly, why I did it. So I spent 2 to 3 days just thinking about my failure. Then over the couple of years, I thought it through that okay, I have two options: either just waste my couple of days and then put some more pressure on top of myself because of my wastage of last 2 days, and I can give less amount of time to my next competition, or I can actually make a peace with it that okay, I failed it, no problem, then I can actually uh, go around it and do my job on the next competitions. So that's my acceptance of my failure. And then it's then the next section is the novelty or the creativity. So I would say the creativity is contagious, so we need to pass it on. So novelty is one of the key factor I try to put in all of my solutions. So let us see what are the things what I mean about the novelty. So if you, as I shown you earlier, that by 3 key wins. So on the first win, where I was actually doing this closing bid predictor and the implementation challenge. So on that first win, one of the novelty factor I introduced in my solution was calculating difference of industry experience between the two companies. So who is bidding and who is trying to be acquired. So on those two companies, if there is any sort of industry experience difference using the NLP technique and some other techniques as well. So those are the novelty factors I introduced on that competition. On the urban world challenge, the calculation of co-location of the citizens using the camera data and then their effect of on their social relationship was another novelty factor I introduced on that solution. And on the last, on that retail popularity one, I introduced another novelty of creating the popularity measurement not as a scalar, because the problem statement actually written that okay, we need a score of the popularity like 2.5 out of 10 or 5.5 out of 10, but I thought, okay, what if I can give a multidimensional vector value, like an with a 3 different dimension, if we can compare 3 or 4 different dimension, if we can compare, and that was a novelty factor on that problem statement. So I always strive for novelty in all of my solutions. So it doesn't matter whether I win or lose, or whether I do good performance or bad, but I always try to give a novel solution. So that's my next slide is all about, that a disclaimer of on the novelty, because whenever you try to give a novel solution, that comes with some sort of risks associated with it. Because to try to give a novel solution, that means you need to do a whole lot of research. That means you need to spend a whole lot of time on doing that research. So that is one of the key problem on the time management part. And if the time management is not managed, if the time is not managed optimum way, then it has a high failure rate on the novelty. And in my experience, in all of the areas, not only in Topcoder, all of the areas while I do the project, and in my real life experience as well, novel solution often fails because they are not the familiar options, they are not already proven. So people have some sort of difficulties to accept a novel solution at first, but when they succeed, they will win big. So that is one of the key thing someone who have recently joined in Topcoder should actually try to understand, that which path they will try to actually follow at first. Because if they try to follow a novel solution, if they try to give a novel solution at first, then there is a high risk that they would be overwhelmed about the whole subject area. Because Topcoder has the very beautiful thing about it, that different type of industry experience that comes into one platform, uh, being it a telecom. So in my last couple of years, I have worked on the telecom, I have worked on the healthcare, I have worked on different other areas, I have worked on retail, I have worked on investment banking. So that is one of the beautiful thing about the Topcoder. So as we do not, and no one is expecting as well, that we should have all the subject areas expertise. So when we need to do we need to give some sort of novelty on that solution, on that subject area, we need to do a whole lot of research. So that's the main problem about the time management and the novel solution, and that's one of the key failure as well, that if you cannot manage your time, then you will fail, obviously. So as I told you earlier, that it depends on the taste and philosophy of the person, that whether initially they would take a quick familiar approach to win, or thrive for novelty and thrive for the strategic growth. So I chose the second one, uh, for giving the novelty and the strategic growth, but it doesn't matter which path you will choose. The way you would succeed, that's the optimum, that's the best path for you. So that I believe. So, and in my opinion, an optimum strategy could be depending on the problem statement and the scoring metric as well, which is a key feature in Topcoder problem statement, because you need to understand the scoring metric, on which metric you will be judged every time. And you just need to read it twice, thrice, unless you have a clear understanding that what is the scoring criteria. And then choose your path, that whether you do a quick win for that with a small amount of time, or you will give a whole lot of time to try for novelty, to put that novelty into your solution. So that's the disclaimer on the novelty part. And then one of another part of these Topcoder experience I had is, sometimes we feel that we are not self-confident enough, that we are not confident enough that we will win, or we will at par with our competitors. So in this area, that is called as the imposter syndrome. So among us who are the technical developers, or who loves to develop some solution, so among us it is a very common problem, this imposter syndrome, that sometimes we do not appreciate ourselves on that particular benchmark that where we are currently. So that's the imposter syndrome. And I can give you a very common example of my friends and colleagues who I meet usually. They all know that what I do in Topcoder and how I do. So few common questions they ask to me that how can I start learning data science, because data science is a very trendy area of the technology. So how can I start learning? What are the courses I need to take in order to succeed in this career? Or how can I succeed in Topcoder specifically? Because they know that I work in Topcoder and I take part in the competitions in Topcoder. So once I uh, chat with them for 15 to 20 minutes that okay, these are the things you need to do, these are the materials, these are the free courses, these are the paid courses, like in Udemy, in Coursera. If you want to self learn yourself, you need to put this amount of time, at least 6 months of time, to be in that position where you actually learned and all the things you actually can do. Then try participating in Topcoder, sorry. And then after 6 months or so, when I asked them, okay, how are you holding up? Did you start participating in Topcoder? How do you feel about it? What are you doing about this? So the usual answers I get from them is, I don't have enough time. See, it is too overwhelming for me. Like the participants who are doing there, they have some great solutions. I don't know these things, and I'm still not at par. So my argument against these things are, okay, there will always be something, or most of the things we do not know, but there will always be something where we know something, right? So we can see the glass as half full or half empty. So instead of looking at the glass as half empty, let us try to see the glass as half full. So I still remember a dialogue on a movie I was watching probably a year back, when a soldier was afraid of asking a girl to date, and his friend told him that, okay, how many bullets you have missed is counted based on how many bullets you have fired. So if you didn't fire any bullet, then there is no point of judging that whether you missed the target or not. So that's the thing. So in my opinion, we need to somehow train ourselves, our brain, that we are not imposter, we can do the things. And one thing I really understand in Topcoder, that just learning from internet or courses isn't enough. You need to have the experience of participating in any data science competition, especially in Topcoder, because that's the beautiful thing about Topcoder, and that's the critical difference between the other competitors of Topcoder and Topcoder. Is here in Topcoder we actually can work on the overall big picture. So one of the example is, currently I am working in one of the challenge for the infant nutrition, where it started from the ideation and now it's going through its development stages. So the whole big picture you can see, you need to appreciate the whole big picture, and then in each one of those components you can share your expertise, or whatever you have learned you can at least try on those areas. So being overwhelmed by the fact that, okay, these are the new things, these are the trendy things, these are the highly technical values these have, so I cannot do this. So instead of that, let us say that, okay, let us give it a try, and if we fail, then it's okay, because we can always learn from our failures. So that's the imposter syndrome. We need to be out of that. And then my philosophy or my framework, which I usually try to do in Topcoder, is this. I first try to imagine the whole situation, try to be in the shoes of the customer, because that actually came from my experience in my day job, because I have around 10 plus years of experience in the IT industry, in the service industry practically. And that gives me the idea that customer is king, and I try to put myself in front of customer or in place of customer sometimes, to understand that how the customer would like this solution, or what is their actual pain point, and try to see the big picture. So I try to imagine those things. Then from those things, if I see that, okay, I do not know about this particular area or this particular problem, then I try to learn from the open internet. Then I try to implement as fast as possible. Then obviously on my first attempt I fail, and then this cycle I repeat till I success. So that's my framework of competing in Topcoder. That imagine, learning, implementation, fail, and repeat till success. So that's how I usually take part in Topcoder data science challenges. And that's all actually from my experience sharing perspective. Now, if we have any other questions or anything, we can actually try to interact with each other to understand, and I will try my best to answer those.
Hey, all, do you have any questions? I do have some questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or in the Q&A. So Sarish, I had a question yesterday in the community town hall around how can beginners learn at Topcoder from how can beginners in data science learn at Topcoder? And I was actually able to support your point where I feel Topcoder is not an ed tech platform, but you can learn outside, but you can always test your skills and you can always learn from the other community members by competing with them or competing on the industrial competitions. So I mean, can you throw some light on that? Like how can beginners benefit from
Okay.
data science competitions at Topcoder?
Yes, sure. So I can give you a practical example how I did do it, because it was probably in late of 2017 when I actually heard about Topcoder. One of my Wipro's manager, he told me that, okay, there is a great platform named Topcoder, which is the future of working, because they actually give you the opportunity to work outside of your day job. So I said, okay, that's great, let me look into that. And I was not, I mean, at that point of time, with my day-to-day job, I was not doing a data scientist job at my uh, Wipro Technologies job profile. So I was doing a self-learning for those. So initially, I remember there was a battery life challenge prediction happened in Topcoder. So that was my first data science, actually data science coding competition in Topcoder, when I tried to participate in that one. And at that point of time, what I did at that point of time, I learned from Udemy, I learned from Coursera a few things, and I had those notes from those lectures, and I simply just copy pasted those codes about, I mean, just molded a few things appropriately, because of those areas where I need to change the problem statement, some parameters, something. But most of the things I just simply copy pasted. And at that point of time, obviously I did not win, because I mean, I was not at par of the competition level which was there in Topcoder. But that broke my imposter syndrome. So that's a key barrier to entry in these competition fields in any one of the sites like Topcoder or any Kaggle or anything. If you go there, the main barrier, I believe, for any beginner is the imposter syndrome rather than their technical capabilities, because everyone, we have the same sort of code base, same sort of opportunity to learn from the open internet, same sort of all the repertoire needed to succeed in the data science. Everyone, we have all of those things at our disposal, at our fingertip. But someone actually try to leverage those, someone doesn't, and that's the key difference which makes by this imposter syndrome. So if you can just break out of your imposter syndrome, try to think, okay, what would happen, I mean, even if you copy paste the code and if you lose, then the most bad thing it would happen that you would not get your prize money. But the great thing happen after the review phase, that you will get access to all the first, second, third position codes, and then you can just copy paste on your next assignment, on your next competition, however the codes they had written in the first, second, third position in the last competition, right? So given the time, you start copy pasting, then you would learn from those, because I mean we are not dumb, right? So we can copy paste, and from the copy pasting we can actually learn something, that okay, why we are doing this, how we are doing this. So that is how I actually learned. So it took me around 1 year or so to understand the whole thing, and then it started that okay, I was seriously participating, and I was actually getting my podium position, I mean top 3 or top 5 positions in the Topcoder competitions, data science competitions.
Awesome, Soresh. That should really answer my question, and to all the beginners out here. We have a question in the chat. Uh, what is your pipeline? What is the pipeline you generally follow when you are solving a challenge?
Okay, I would say pipeline I follow is the simple pipeline. I imagine about the problem. I try to, because I always try to give a novelty. So I try to creative thinking about the problem statement. Then most of the time, 90% of the problem I do not know what need to be done. Then I try to learn that as fast as possible. After learning, I simultaneously try to implement that approach as well as fast as possible. Then I believe in fail fast, that obviously you will fail, but the faster you will fail, the actual effort to solve that failure would be less. So you need to fail fast enough so that you can repeat the whole cycle. So that's my pipeline. And if you try to ask about the pipeline from a data science perspective, it's very simple. Go into internet, do an sklearn search, scikit-learn, and use their pipeline. So I do not have any pipeline or any framework written which I actually reuse in every competition, because every competition have their own flavor, have their own essence. So I give merit to every competition as per their own essence. So I do not have those data science pipeline, but the actual framework I follow is this: imagine, learn, implement, and fail till I success.
Awesome. We have another question, Soresh. So it's like, may I know how many hours on average do you spend each week to work on these competitions? Time management.
Oh, okay. And that's if I give you that answer, let's say I would I mean, I will lose my competitive advantage, aren't I? Because okay, let me be very honest. Yes, I give at least 5 to 6 hours at least every day for top coder competitions. I work hard, really hard. After my 8 hours of day job, I usually give another 5 to 6 hours. I try to give another 5 to 6 hours on the weekdays, and on the weekends, I mean, I usually chill with my family. So
Right.
5 into 5, it's 25 to 30 hours in a week.
There's one more question, Soresh. What online courses would you suggest to a beginner?
Oh, okay. It's in Udemy. Just go to Udemy and try to. So if you are absolute beginner, don't go for the deep learning courses, because I did that failure. Try to learn from my mistake, because you won't be able to appreciate the nitty-gritties of the deep learning, and it is not needed at this point of time. If you are absolute beginner, just try to learn A to Z machine learning in Udemy, and there are a plethora of courses in Coursera as well. But the A to Z machine learning framework, probably that was the course I actually learned from, and from that I got my first win in Topcoder in 2018.
Awesome. I think, Suresh, if you can help us, like when you give us this deck, we'll be posting the deck in the forums, the Top Coder forum, so you can like just link a few courses in the deck so that if members
Okay, sure,
that
sure,
your
sure.
that would be amazing. Yeah. And Suresh, I had a question. Do you like when you look at a Top Coder competition? Do you always uh, like approach it as if you are going to win it, or do you just go into it and then you start getting the feel of it in the middle of the contest that hey, I can really win it and like can really go at the top?
Okay, uh, to be honest, all the data science competition I first register myself, because that actually I am interested in. And after registering, I try to solve my existing competitions. I try to clear up my existing competition queue, because at any given point of time, usually there are 2 to 3 competition in a simultaneous time runs into Topcoder platform. I mean, from a data science perspective.
Right.
So yes, always my intention is to win. I'm a very competitive person, but if I don't see that I have enough time to put my effort there, or at least some sort of novelty, I usually do not submit on those competitions. So if I submit, then I submit for a win.
Okay, that sums it up. Hey guys, do you have any other questions for Suresh? I think there's no new one, but I think I'll ask another question. So I wanted to like chat more about novelty, uh, you know, and like can you throw some light on pick one of the competitions again, and how do you really
Mm.
think about it, like or one of these competitions or any one you really feel that.
Okay, no, one of these competition would be great, because my best novelty, in my opinion, was on this challenge, the Phase 2 Urban World Prescribed Challenge.
Okay.
So because as you understand that novelty are the stories, right? I mean, we need to have a story behind it, otherwise, I mean, creativity won't happen if you cannot uh, explain it through a story,
Right.
right? So what happened at this problem statement, the problem statement was for us to actually give probably 100 or 150 user IDs who would be who would have the highest possibility of friendship between themselves. On We need to choose those 100 users among 2000 probably the total users. And at that challenge, there were many things given, like what are their experience habits, how they were, I mean, what were their locations, and what jobs they did, where they live, how many hours of job they put, when they go to restaurant, when they go to some sort of entertainment areas like zoo or theater or cinema hall, these kind of things. So from that we had to give those 150 users. Okay, and that was, as you can see, the timeline was in December. So when I was working on that challenge, I remember on the Boxing Day sale, I have one of the shopping mall here, so I went there with my family, and I saw, okay, there is a huge queue in front of all the retail stores because they were giving some sales. And I put that example while I was doing the reporting for this particular problem uh, at part of my submission deck. So I put all those things, that I saw a huge queue on that was on 26th of December. On 27th of December, the queue size was actually very less. And then I went there because I was curious, because the statistics I was trying to find from the problem statement was showing me the same sort of result, that when you give a discount in a retail store or in some sort of areas where people actually spend,
Right.
then in the initial 1 or 2 days, the queue or the interest due to the discount is very high. Then after 1 or 2 days, it shows a flattening curve, like a plateau. So it's a kind of a very high volume, then a plateau,
Okay.
then again a bit of deep after 2 to 3 weeks. So I was keen to understand whether, because I had the opportunity because of the timelines, because at that point of time the sale and all the Christmas shopping and all those things were going on, happening around ourselves. So I went there 3 to 4 times on that particular shopping mall. I spent there 2 to 3 hours in a day with my laptop, and obviously with my family as well. They were shopping, and I was just observing the people. So the finding I saw from that shopping mall was actually proving my theory, what I was able to get statistically from the data set that was presented there.
Right.
So from that, it came to my mind, okay, it's actually happening. The things I was doing by writing the code, it's actually happening in real life. And then also at that point of time, I was reading the book which was written by Abhijit V. Banerjee, and they had done some experiments. So I tried to follow those experiments with the data set. And then also, as I shared my novelty approach about this particular problem statement, that there were the data set that who went where and when
Right.
from the camera data, the CCTV footage of the city. So from that, I was able to create some sort of co-location data. So I mean, I try to imagine whole lot of new things about the problem statement, and that is how I come to any sort of novelty. And then I try to learn to implement those novelties, because sometimes it happens that you imagine something, it would be good if this happens, but you don't know how to implement that. So to do that, in order to do that, you need to learn a whole lot of things. So I then try to learn a whole lot of things, that how I can implement that with a particular programming statement, language, and all those things. And then if I get some sort of code from internet, I try to implement those in my solutions with my novel idea. So that's I actually implement the novelty in my solutions.
That was very detailed, Suresh. Thanks. We have a question following on the same topic. To implement a novel solution to a problem, do you read and implement research papers, or like what is your process?
Oh, okay. Research paper, yes. Sometimes, yes. I am not from a very detailed mathematical background. I am from a computer science background. So, I mean, I know a bit of mathematics, but not very detailed. And in most of the machine learning and the AI related research paper, I sometimes find it's too mathematical. I always appreciate if I see the implementation fast rather than the mathematical theory. So sometimes I would say 30% of my time I spend for the novelty in reading the research paper, but 70% of time I find the novelty comes from me watching few documentaries, reading books, looking at the nature from a different perspective, walking through the rivers, I mean walking by the rivers, and having traveling through the rivers, because I live nearby Thames. So yes, from nature I get inspiration, from watching documentaries or the movies in cinemas I get inspiration. But 30% of time I read research papers, so that's not the key things I do for my novelties.
Awesome, Suresh. We have some more questions coming up here. I
Okay.
have some of them in Q&A. So how can I improve my standard coding skills? Like I always get review responses from Copilot that your challenge does not follow standard coding guidelines.
Hmm. Okay. One of the thing I followed, because initially I started participating in the development challenge, and my first couple of challenge was trying to implement blockchain and Node.js. So on the first challenge I submitted, I failed very badly, very badly, because I had lot of I mean commented codes, and all the coding standard I did not follow. I had no idea what the coding standards were. I was just copy pasting the codes from internet to do the Node.js. Then when I saw the first position on that particular challenge written in the Node.js, I saw it's a beautiful coding standard and all those things. Then the follow-up competition, when it actually launched, I tried to inspire from the fast position challenge. Whoever was the fast on that particular, I mean, on previous challenge, I learned from that coding standard, those Node.js and all those things, and I tried to implement that one. And after learning from my failure, I was positioned second on my second challenge on that Node.js and blockchain. So to answer your question, for improving the coding standard, there is no better way than following whoever have the better implementation. Just follow their coding standard, you would be better on your second attempt, and then keep improving yourself using the same method. Then you would be best in probably 5 to 6
Competence.
efforts.
Okay, there's one more question, Soresh. May I know which framework or language do you use often?
I often use Python.
Do you use all the frameworks like pandas and yeah.
Yes, I mean, as per my learning exercise, after imagining part, whatever needed, I use those. I mean, if pandas is needed, I use pandas. If geopandas is needed, I use geopandas. So no matter what is needed, if I find the license is okay to use in this competition, and I can implement my thought process through those frameworks or libraries, yes, I use those. And pandas is a common library, so I mean, everyone use pandas.
Okay, yeah. There are two more questions by Shubham. So by working on job and challenge simultaneously, does it not create any problem for you? Another question on time management actually.
Oh, okay. Yes, it poses a very big problem for me to manage my time, but to overcome that problem I need to work hard. So there is no other I mean, answer or no other way around. You need to work hard, you need to manage your time, because it's only 20. So sometimes I imagine, what if we had 48 hours in a day, then it would be good, isn't it? But unfortunately it's not the case, it's only 24 hours. So yeah, I have to work hard to manage my time, and that's the only answer I can help you with.
Okay, I have one more question. I think probably that's the last one. Can you suggest best tutorial for forecasting? Because Shubham is asking that question, and he actually participated in the Urban World Challenge too. So he's asking that can you suggest the best tutorial for forecasting? Like,
Okay, forecasting. I believe it's the time series forecasting.
yeah.
Okay, best tutorial on time series forecasting. Let me see. I had read a book from, I cannot remember the name, from Mr. Jason on the machineLearningLibrary.com. So from there, I started my journey on the time series forecasting, and then read through the open internet. So there is no silver bullet, Shivam. You cannot have a silver bullet which can solve all of your problems. So you need to learn everything, whatever at your disposal. So if you have a competition of time series forecasting, then read everything, whatever you can, and try to implement as fast as possible. And yes, I appreciate that we all have a problem, and I usually very bad at my time management skills, but I try to improve upon that, and I try to work harder, more harder, every day by day. And that's the only way we can improve. So be it a time series forecasting or be it anything, so if you learn and try to implement and fail fast, then we would improve ourselves.
Awesome. Thanks, Suresh. Do you have anything to add in the end for all the attendees?
No, I would say very good luck, and I would probably be enjoying competing among ourselves, because I am still competing. I would compete in Topcoder in future as well. So let's have a very good competition.
Yeah, I'll actually end with my favorite line. See you on the leaderboard.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for attending. Thanks Suresh for taking our
Thank
time
you.
and giving all the valuable insights and facts to
It's my
in
pleasure,
data science
Harshit.
conversations.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Hope you are safe and enjoying at your home right now. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.